Today on a special crossover event, everything is totally fine with the New York Yankees. Well, maybe not so much. And we get an exclusive crossover with Locked On Yankees to figure out about that. And we talk about two teams that are on the opposite end of a lot of spectrums.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans and Yankees fans, welcome into a special crossover episode of Locked On Rockies and Locked On Yankees here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies or the New York Yankees, well, you're in the right spot because that's what we do around here. I'm Paul Holden, host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, joined as always by the one, the only Stacey Gotsulias of Locked On Yankees. It's been far too long. Not the first time we've talked, but we're usually an off-season pod. You got big fish to fry over there in New York, and us Rockies fans are still fighting for our relevancy here. But it's so great to have you back on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been a quiet day around these parts.
Well, we're, of course, going to talk about how everything is peaceful and calm over there in Yankees camp. We're also going to dive into two teams that have taken a lot of different approaches and obviously have a lot of different history, which I think will be kind of interesting as you look at a team that's looking to improve their reputation and a team that has a reputation that will stand the test of time. But in case you didn't know, this is the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find your team every day. You can find Locked On Rockies on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. You can also find Locked On Yankees on the Locked On Yankees YouTube channel. Your subscription, your follow, your comments on those videos are the easiest way to help our shows grow, are a massive help to us. Shout outs to our everydayers out there and the people that make our podcast the first listen of their day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. I know that was weird. The code is Locked On MLB, all lowercase, not all lowercase Locked On MLB. But Stacey, let's address the elephant in the room here. Rockies fans might have seen that there was some news out of Yankees camp today. Big name arm, big name concern.
Yeah, things were going too well. And I'm the type of person where if things are going too well, I know something's going to happen. And I felt that for some reason this weekend, I felt a lot of anxiety and it was really weird. And I couldn't place why I was feeling anxious. And then we got the news Monday morning about Gerrit Cole and his elbow. And I thought, really? Is that my psychic ability? Also, I have a dull pain in my right elbow, which is really odd. So I don't know what is going on with that. But yeah, Gerrit Cole getting an MRI. We're not going to know anything till about Wednesday, I think they said, because they're going to try and figure out what's going on. The dealio is that not outward pain, just not recovering as fast between his throwing sessions, which is kind of freaky for him because that never happens. So that's the bad part. It's something that never happens for Gerrit Cole, which is why they put him in the MRI tube. So Yankee fans are holding their collective breath and doing really well and not panicking at all.
well, let's remind me, as Cole had a history of injuries, this is like a big thing, which is always worrisome. And then elbow, that's literally the worst thing you can hear when it comes to a pitcher and the injury. So you said people are kind of freaking out a little bit. Just give me your, at least right now, obviously it's a wait and see, but just just kind of give me the different degrees here from like, maybe it's a couple weeks to it's a couple months. What does this look like for the Yankees?
Well, this is the thing. Yankee fans have been burned in the past by Aaron Boone, Brian Cashman, the players themselves saying, oh, yeah, no, it's not a big deal. I'll be back in 2 days. This will happen in a couple of days. And then guys are out for months, So hearing them say, oh, it's just precautionary. We're just making sure he's okay. We're thinking worst case scenario, really, just from the past, being burned in the past. We don't trust these guys when they say things. And it's a bad thing to say about them, but they kind of made it this way. So no one believes them when they say anything.
Yeah, really, the best you can do here is just hold your breath and waiting to see what Wednesday brings and what that means for the Yankees. So, does this mean possibly the Yankees get back into the Snell market, or do you think the Yankees, go and flex a little bit of their muscle and be like, "Hey, we got a spot," or do you? Because again, that's a big call to make. You can't be calling, in my eyes, you can't be calling Blake Snell right now until you really know what's up with these MRIs, and
Right.
even so, if it's can you last 2 months, including, 2 more weeks of spring training in the first month-ish of the season, can you survive until the return there? I would imagine the Yankees might be hesitant before a massive, massive move like that.
Right. And it's still, we're recording this March 11th, but we're airing this March 12th, and Blake Snell's still not signed. Jordan Montgomery is still not signed. Like, it's the strangest offseason in a while, since probably the Machado Harper offseason when those two guys weren't signed until late. And I feel like the Yankees would probably wait until Gerrit Cole's arm was literally falling off before they would call Scott Boras and Blake Snell and be like, "Hey, we got a spot for you on the team."
Come on down. Yeah, and as for Rockies fans, I mean, I don't think you can hold out hope for them to bring in those arms. It's just they're not going to spend that type of money, I don't think. I mean, you never know. They who knows what they might want to do.
Isn't it odd that the only deal we know about is the Yankees offering Snell something? No one else has offered him anything. And then there are reports that he'd prefer to play for the Angels, but then you didn't hear anything about them offering anything. And it's just, there's some fishy stuff going on this offseason.
And it's amazing because it's like, you'd think by now he would take there would be a settled deal on a content, a team
With
that's
someone.
like in the middle, that's like, hey, we'll take, long term. I don't know, but we got I don't know. I'm just going to be kind of go crazy. I don't know how much they would need it, but like the Diamondbacks or even the Mariners are like these teams to just beef up their rotations a little bit more. These teams that are right kind of in that mix. But then what does that mean going forward? It's such a risk for those pitchers who really got to cash in. I mean, Blake Snell's never going. It's got to be so frustrating for him to be a Cy Young winner, but still not be able to capitalize on that and get his big deal. I mean, you can't be. You got to be really frustrated because, man, you talk about the momentum going for you into the offseason where I'm a Cy Young winner.
Yeah.
Come on now. You got to pay me.
Has this ever happened? I feel like this is a rare thing for someone to come off a Cy Young winning season going into free agency and be unsigned with 2 weeks left until opening day. It's crazy.
Yeah, but someone is going to sign those players. That is too much talent in those two arms alone to not go on somebody, especially a team that, unfortunately, what we do know about spring training, someone's going to get hit by the injury bug, and obviously we hoping the Yankees it isn't the case, but the Rockies had Brendan Rodgers go down with a basically season-ending shoulder injury. He was able to play in late August and September on a dive ball on his first dive ball attempt in spring training last year, and I mean the ripple effects are massive. So unfortunately, you never want to root for that, but that's just unfortunately a reality of the game. There's going to be an unfortunate Tommy John. There's going to be an unfortunate back strain or something like that, especially as pitchers it's such a finicky thing. And a lot of pitchers are still figuring out that new rule. I do wonder how much conditioning and stuff was different for pitchers with those new rules. Let's shift gears just a little bit here to offseason in general. Rockies got highly criticized for their offseason, some calling it a failure in certain cases. And I'm actually in the camp of the Rockies are letting a lot of their young guys play and figuring it out. The Yankees, on the other hand, they needed to make some noise. They needed to reassert themselves atop of arguably the best division in baseball. And I don't even think that might be close to arguing with that. In your eyes, did the Yankees do enough to set themselves up for a solid campaign this year?
Without injuries, yes.
Yeah. Great.
I feel like there's more depth in the lineup, and I feel like the bullpen is set up really nicely, but the rotation was already kind of iffy because you didn't know how Rodon was going to do in his second year because of how bad his first year was. Nestor Cortez is coming back from that weird shoulder issue that he had. And, those two in spring training have been kind of iffy. And it was, coming into it, everyone was thinking, okay, it's Gerrit Cole, Clark Schmidt in the 5, and then in the middle, Then they signed Marcus Stroman, so that kind of made almost like a tent pole there. So I don't know. Ugh. I feel like they did. I feel like Juan Soto helps a lot with the
Right.
lineup, and Verdugo too. People always dismiss the Verdugo move, but that was really good because the Yankees went from playing an infielder as the backup outfielder in IKF to having legit outfielders playing the outfield and Trent Grisham, a legit center fielder, as your fourth outfielder. So that way they made the team better, but the rotation side of the pitching was always iffy, and now it's even worse with the Cole MRI.
Can the Yankees can the Yankees hit their way to the top of the AL East with all that offensive firepower in that division?
I'm not sure because, you have Corbin Burns on the Orioles. You have all of those guys that the Rays seem to grow in a lab that come out of nowhere,
I don't know what their name is.
The Blue Jays have Gossman and Bassett and all those other guys. So it's not going to be that easy. And as you said, the AL East, as bad as they performed in the playoffs last year with all three teams getting swept, it's still the toughest division in baseball. This might be a division, if Cole's injury isn't as bad as everyone thinks it is, or even if it isn't an injury, it's just, something. I feel like there's a possibility for at least 3 of the teams in the AL East to win 90 games, especially with the schedule being open now, where you play more of everyone else and not as much as the division. So yeah, it could be interesting, but I don't know. That's hard. There's a lot of good pitching in the AL East.
There's a lot of good everything in the AL East. I mean, it's amazing to think about it. And the number 1 overall prospect in all of baseball might be knocking on the door there in Baltimore. He's making a lot of noise there too. You mentioned actually something I wanted to ask you, since we haven't talked since the shift of getting to watch all the teams. And I think it's a slam dunk great move. And I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about team reputations and stuff, kind of get a little bit more in the weeds with these two teams here. Coming up in segment number 2 of our crossover episode of Locked On Rockies and Locked On Yankees. But before we do that, got to tell you about some of the folks that make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. Football season may be over, but the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's tournament season or the fight for the playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. And you can get in on all the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Basically, what you do is you pick a player, you pick a stat category, you pick over or under, and if they hit that, you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks, and it's got all the action, NBA, NHL, all that and more you can find at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks even offers injury insurance so that your entry stay in play, even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays live. You can download the app today, the PrizePicks app, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, this is Locked On Rockies. This is Locked On Yankees. Thanking you for making us your first listen of the day. Hey, a reminder for you folks out there, if you can't get enough Locked On sports coverage, well, Locked On's launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And Stacey, you mentioned a good point here, and I think I was pro rule changes, and I don't want to dive into that, but I think one of the best things baseball did last year was open the schedule up, and every team gets to play each other. It is so refreshing to not play the Dodgers a million times, the Padres, the Diamondbacks. I mean,
the Red Sox, the Rays, same.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and hey, what makes me laugh is even you've criticized this. I don't need to see another Sunday night baseball of Red Sox Yankees for a bit.
Please.
I'm good. We could watch
We're good for the next 30 years with that, ESPN. I mean, seriously.
until those two teams are fighting for the AL East crown again. There's so much other things to highlight, but it's really, really cool for Rockies fans to see the Yankees, and I think for Yankees fans to see the Rockies, because they're going to be names that they've never heard of, and they're going to raise some eyebrows.
Mm-hmm. Well, they raised some eyebrows. Was it last year when the Yankees had that horrible game on the Sunday? Yeah.
Yeah,
They had two games. They had two games like that. They had a game like that against the Rockies, and they had a game like that against the Marlins on a Sunday where they were up by a bunch of runs and ended up losing in horrible fashion, walk-off. And yeah, we should have known that the year was just going to be terrible from those two performances.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's terrible for you guys, and it was still what did you finish with? How many wins, and still with the playoffs? The Rockies, 103 losses, worst season in franchise history. But I want to talk about that too, reputation, and how much does it matter? Like, I mean, the Rockies' reputation, honestly, is poor. I mean, the Rockies are, by and large, a laughing stock. A lot of people use the Rockies as the butt of a joke, and it's even been on display from people in the game. How important is it for the reputation of your team to matter? I mean, the influence of the New York Yankees carries so much weight.
Yeah, and a lot of people were making a big deal about Yamamoto picking the Dodgers instead of the Yankees and saying he wanted to go to a winner. And people were saying, oh, people think the Yankees aren't winners anymore and they don't want to go there. Let's get this straight. Yamamoto wanted to be with Ohtani.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And the Dodgers, no offense, but the Dodgers of right now are like the Yankees of the 2000s before they won in 2009, when they made the playoffs every year, but they kept getting knocked out in the first round, and they'd win like 102 games, get knocked out by the Angels in the first round. The Dodgers are doing the same exact thing, so they're not that much of a winner. It's not like they're a dynasty that's won 3 World Series in a row. But there is a reputation thing. And in New York's case, there's also the bad part of it, where you hear stories about guys who can't handle New York and they have horrible, 2 to 3 year stints in New York where it's the worst part of their career. And so it's understandable why some people don't want to come to New York, because it's tough. And it's not just the Yankees, it's the Mets too, because it's the number one media market in the country. It's the number one TV market in the country. The journalists, as much as I love them, are brutal. Maybe
Right.
not as brutal as Boston when guys leave Boston, because they're pretty cutthroat too. But it goes both ways. Like the Yankees have a good reputation. When guys come over, I didn't realize how great it would be to play here, because everyone is so, everything is businesslike, but fun, and they're really into everything. Like, Marcus Stroman was like, I knew it was going to be like this when I got here, but it's even better than I thought. But then there's the other side of it with the bad stuff, where I can understand why guys would be like, no.
Right.
Yeah.
And so do you think it's overall like it is a strength, or do you think nowadays it's getting in the way because of what you said? I mean, there's a lot of players that are trying to kind of forge their own ways, that are, will say there was a lot of dust up with Chris Bryant's comments, but he was able to clear the air. But, there is kind of a reason to pick Colorado versus, going into those aggressive markets. I don't really fault them. I like when the Chris Bryant comments came up, I wasn't necessarily mad at Chris Bryant, other than he was like, well, I didn't do my research on the prospects. And it's like, well, you could have just done a quick Google and you would have seen where the situation was. But hey, Chris Bryant's not going to sit. Why would Chris Bryant walk away from 8-year, $180 million deal? Like, I mean, he's sitting there like, great. Of course he wants to win, but if there are players like that, that matters. And I think it's not really a blowback to say that you don't have to face as critical of a media landscape, but there are people that will criticize you. I mean, Chris Bryant has been criticized, and myself, I have criticized Chris Bryant, but I do wonder at its core, teams will go to the Yankees. Teams won't go to the Rockies. You know what I mean? Like there is, I still think that where it's, why would a team go to Colorado? Why would Chris Bryant go to Colorado if he could have been on the Yankees is a fair question. So is that reputation, is that kind of legacy of the Yankees overall a strength? Because Marcus Stroman was convinced to go there, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And it's funny because before he signed, there was that whole dust up in 2019 where, he wanted to come to the Yankees and the Yankees needed help. 2019, they ended up winning 103 games by the grace of God. I have no idea how they did it with 30 guys on the IL, but they still won 103 games. And Cashman, instead of saying at the trade deadline, we're okay, we don't need another starter, he actually personally attacked Marcus Stroman and his pitching ability. So of course Marcus Stroman was going to react in a bad way and not say nice things about the Yankees after that happened. And people were still holding that against him when the Yankees signed him. And I even tried to say it on the show. If someone came out and said something about your pitching ability, a team that you grew up watching as a kid, that you wanted to play for, how would you feel? Of course you would bite back. Of course you would bark back. I mean, hello. So yes, it's a good thing because it's a New York thing, but there are also bad parts to it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Because some I don't think will. Some of the players probably don't mesh with the Yankee way. I'm a bearded, long-haired type of guy. I mean, but a lot of people have changed that. But I think that type of stuff does get in the way. And I think the Rockies are just they just haven't done a good enough job at creating an identity enough for themselves. They've never really leaned fully into the Coors Field thing. They other than Blake Street Bombers, when it was like, hey, we're going to bring a bunch of dudes and their whole job is to hit home runs. We love it. That, and that's they haven't really carved out an identity for themselves. And then when there's an exciting young team forming with Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story and DJ LeMahieu and this playoff team, back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time in franchise history. There's finally something there, and then poof, it's gone. It's pulled out from under you, with the Arenado trade and the pandemic season and all that. And it just is a reminder that it's like, man, the Rockies can just go from, talk of the town in Denver to just irrelevant like that. But the Yankees, they're people are gonna be talking about the Yankees forever, till time stops. The New York Yankees will be talked about, and I just think that that's such an interesting dynamic between these two teams. And obviously, you got to put into context one of the longest teams and one of the teams with the most history versus a franchise expansion team,
right.
But it's still something that the Rockies are now 30 years. I mean,
I was going to say, I'm like, hey, it's an anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like their 30th year celebration was the worst season in franchise history by wins and losses. So at some point, the Rockies are going to have to do more to make themselves not the best bar in Denver, not this team that's fun for a little flash in the pan wild card thing. How are they going to win their first division title? How many AL East titles do the Yankees have, before you even get to the World Series, the ALCS appearances, just winning the division? I mean, the Rockies have so far to go, and sometimes I'm not always confident that they're going to get there. But
it also doesn't help that you have the Dodgers in your division.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. And that's a good segue, because let's punch back at the Dodgers a little bit. And you gave him a little bit of a hook. I want to follow through with one too, because I think they deserve to be rightly criticized for their lack of playoff production. They are phenomenal at building teams and great in the regular season, but you cannot deny their playoff failures. And a lot of people criticize spending money, and a lot of people want the Rockies to go spend more money. And so I want to die. And the Yankees, of course, are the team that's embroiled in the most of let's spend money. They used to be that team. I want to talk about that here coming up in segment number 3 to close out this crossover edition of Locked On Rockies and Locked On Yankees. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you about our friends at Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date with all the latest in the world of sports. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos, and more. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Locked On Rockies, Locked On Yankees here, winding things down with just the big question that a lot of people ask when it comes to baseball. Can you win by spending money? And I think you got to spend money effectively. You can't cheapskate, but you also can't just throw huge money, huge contracts. And both the Rockies and the Yankees are teams that have had big contracts that aren't panning out. And so I'm curious, Stacey, what is your thoughts on that? Do you criticize when teams spend big? Are you mad at the Dodgers? I want to be mad at the Dodgers, but it's also like, if you can make it, if you can pull off those deals, then the rules don't prevent you from doing it.
Exactly. The thing about the Yankees spending is they used to be, well, all right, let's not say that. There were many bad contracts in the time of George Steinbrenner. But the time that he was suspended, those couple years that he was suspended, when Stick Michael started fooling around with the farm system, and, guys like Mo and Jeter and Posada and Bernie Williams all started coming up, there was a good mix of money and prospects, And I always like bringing this up. 1998, when the Yankees won 114 games, they were the best team in baseball. They win the World Series. Who had the highest payroll in baseball? The Baltimore Orioles.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Yankees were like 6th or something like that. Like they weren't even, yeah. I feel like you can spend money, but you have to mix it. You can't just go out and buy a bunch of free agents because it's not going to work that way. You have to have a good mix of young talent and veteran talent that you're paying a lot of money. What the Dodgers did is impressive. The Shohei Ohtani deal, I know some people were pissed about it, but if your teams can do it too, I mean, there's no rule against it,
Right. Right.
And the thing that drives me crazy about, no offense, your team, the Pirates, the Marlins, all these other teams, they all have money. They all hide behind the whole, our market isn't big enough, we shouldn't spend this much money. Give me a break. Like, it's just, no. And I also don't like the new playoff setup. I feel like a lot of teams are going to look at the Diamondbacks, great story, making the World Series with 84 wins, and think in their heads, oh, okay, that's the baseline. If we get like 84, 85, as long as we skirt our way into the playoffs, maybe we'll go on a run for 2 weeks and win the World Series. No one wants to see that either. Like, you want some of these teams to spend money. I feel bad for Pirates fans. When was the last time they won? It's a long time ago. I think I was 5 when they won in 79, right? And last time they made the playoffs over 11 years ago. Like, just, these guys have money and they don't want to spend it. And I feel that way sometimes with Hal. Like, it's that whole luxury tax thing for the Yankees. He has that, we can't do that because they're going to penalize us. He could probably live 15 lifetimes and not spend all the money that he has, and it's like, just do it. Be the evil empire again. Okay. Go. If something's wrong with Cole, don't just do Blake Snell. Call up Jordan Montgomery. Be like, dude, you want to, let's do this. Let's just go.
Yankees fans love to be the evil empire again.
Yes. I like when people hate us. It's not fun when our team doesn't make the playoffs and we have to sit there and take it. Right. I'd much rather have them hate us and root against us. I say us like I'm part of the team, but you know what I mean? I would much rather have that than have what happened last season. I didn't like them not making the playoffs. Although, to be honest, it was nice to have an October that was not stressful. I will say that.
Well, I can tell you, I crave the stressful Octobers. I would happily go back to melting and watching because last time the Rockies got through the stressful one-game wild card with the Cubs there and then getting swept in the next round. But I agree. The Rockies are definitely facing that. The Chris Bryant contract is going to be an albatross here as they start to figure out this young talent. But that's why I didn't criticize and blow them up this offseason and say it was a failure, because don't go spend a bunch of money right now. You're not in that. You're not the Diamondbacks even already. You're not going to make that initial jump. You still need a little more time. If you're Nolan Jones, Ezekiel Tovar, these young names, if they do make the steps that are projected of them, the Rockies, then you got to, sell off some of the bad contracts and then look
you have
to
to be
add.
smart when you spend that money.
Right.
It's
and the
all
Rockies,
about being smart. Yeah.
And the Rockies have to prove that they can be smart with that. The Rockies front office and the organization has to prove and earn the trust of the fans to build a winning team, because right now, while it's still far off, there are some pieces that if things go well, we're putting all the qualifiers on here, but if the plan goes how they're going to it, then you can go and say, hey, let's convince 2 pitchers to come to Coors Field. You want to know it's going to convince someone to Coors an extra $5 million. And they can do it because the thing that people might not realize, the Rockies, they're a middle of the road spending team, usually on the bottom half, depending on the year. They've been in the upper halves as well, but they're a perennial top half of the league in attendance. People still go to Coors Field all the time. And especially now with all the teams coming and Colorado having being a place that people want to travel to. And a lot of people have moved to the game there. I think the Yankees are actually at Coors this year. No, that was last year. So the Yankees are going, but any of these AL East teams, any of the California teams, I mean, the Dodgers are going to sell out Coors Field every single time. And it's a bummer that it's going to be a lot of Dodgers fans, I know, but we're talking business. We're talking dollars here. Dick Monfort can spend more. Do we trust Dick Monfort to spend the right way? And he is yet to really prove that, because there's still a couple of other deals where we're sitting here and kind of pulling our collars a little bit. But what we can both agree on, Stacey, is the Dodgers got to prove it a little bit, right? I mean, at this point, like, if they do all this and you know what, they get one more excuse here, and then it's fully on. Shohei isn't pitching this year, so
as much as I love
one thing.
Yeah, as much as I love my Dodger friends, because I have a bunch of them, nothing would make me laugh harder. And I know, as a Yankee fan, I shouldn't even say this, but nothing would make me laugh harder than the team that did what they did this offseason being kicked out in the first round again.
Hey, I will have to, because you know what? As as much recent success, other than that one, the one World Series, the Dodgers and the Rockies can at least be on similar levels there. As I try to grasp for my straws and then compare the Rockies to the Dodgers. I'm a Rockies optimist out there, locked on Yankees fans, but I'm a Rockies realist as well. But Stacey, thank you so much. We're gonna wrap things up. For my Rockies fans out there, where can they go to stay up to date with the Yankees and all the cool things that you do?
You can watch me on Locked On Yankees. I'm not really on Twitter that much on Locked On Yankees, because no one really pays attention to those tweets. But you can follow me if you want to at Stace Gotts, STACEGOTS, if you're listening, and Instagram Locked On Yankees, all one word.
You can, for those Yankees fans, if you're curious about the NL West purple dinosaurs or the Colorado Rockies, whatever you want to, you can find us Locked On Rockies on YouTube, LO Rockies on Twitter. And folks, that is going to do it for us. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen of the day. You can go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. And until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Podcast Network.